April 1st, 1939, Lynchburg, Virginia. A boy kneels beside a stretcher in the basement of a brick church. The fluorescent light hums overhead. His hands tremble as he wraps them in gauze, mimicking the Red Cross poster tacked to the wall. He is 17, lean, methodical. His name is Desmond Thomas Doss. The banner behind him reads, Seventh-day Adventist Health Service Corps. That year, Virginia's textile mills were closing. The Depression still shaped the region's economy. 21% unemployment, rationed pay, little upward movement. The Doss family lived in a wooden house outside Lynchburg, near the railroad tracks. His father, a carpenter, drank heavily. His mother worked at a shoe factory. Desmond was quiet, obedient, devout. His worldview came from two sources, the Bible and anatomy diagrams. The verse that defined him hung on his bedroom wall, framed under glass. Thou shalt not kill. He read it literally. He also carried a photograph of his brother in uniform, a contradiction he couldn't resolve. When the war in Europe began in 1939, Doss was 20, working at a shipyard in Newport News. He saw recruitment posters daily. Defend freedom, enlist today. He didn't walk past them, he studied them, reading the fine print at the bottom. One line mattered. Medical corpsmen needed. After Pearl Harbor, the country shifted from talk to mobilization. 16.1 million Americans would serve. 37,000 claimed conscientious objector status. Doss was one of them. He didn't refuse the draft. He requested to serve without a weapon. The distinction was rare and often misunderstood. The selective service forms allowed for non-combatant roles, but local boards treated them as defiance. His induction papers were stamped Class 1AO, meaning fit for service but exempt from carrying arms. May 1942, Camp Lee, Virginia. Rows of recruits lined up for rifle issue. Doss stepped forward and said, I'll take the medical bag. The quartermaster paused. Regulation says everyone signs for a weapon. Doss replied, Sir, my weapon's the stretcher. The officer marked his file with a red notation. Refuses arms. From that day forward, he was a man without a rifle in an army built on them. The Army of 1942 had no training path for unarmed soldiers. Field medics were expected to qualify with the M1 Garand and the .45 automatic. Doss completed all other requirements, physical fitness, obstacle course, tactical movement, but refused to fire a single round. He drilled with an empty belt. The instructor shouted, You can't hide behind God out here, Private. Doss said nothing. Silence was his argument. Statistically, one medic died for every 4 infantrymen they served beside. The Medical Department Training Manual of 1942 listed courage, steadiness, and endurance as essential traits, the same traits measured in rifle marksmanship for others. Doss met those standards through repetition. He memorized wound classification charts by heart, compound fracture, tension pneumothorax, arterial bleed. He practiced one-handed bandages until his skin blistered. He wrote the steps down each night, labeling them like scripture. His fellow recruits didn't understand him. Some mocked, others threatened. One night, a boot struck his cot. When we get to combat, you'll be the first dead. Doss didn't answer. He kept his Bible on his chest and fell asleep. Weeks later, the same men would depend on his steadiness. But in 1942, he was still a curiosity, a soldier who wouldn't fight. The official record shows he qualified as a combat medic on August 17, 1942, after 124 days of training. His score on the written medical exam was 92%, among the top in his company. He failed weapons qualification with a 0. It didn't matter. The battalion commander overruled the protest, noting, He meets every other criterion. The war will find a use for him. Before shipping out, he wrote one letter to his parents. If I don't come back, I'll have done what I thought was right. The Bible says not to kill. It doesn't say not to help. September 21st, 1942. The train rolled south toward Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Rain streaked the windows. Doss sat alone, his medic's armband folded in his pocket. He wasn't running from violence. He was walking straight into it, unarmed. He didn't refuse war. He refused the gun. October 5th, 1942. Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Reveille sounds at 04:30. Rows of recruits spill from their barracks, boots hitting gravel in unison. One man stands out. No rifle on his shoulder, no sidearm on his belt. Private Desmond Doss, 77th Infantry Division, Medical Detachment. His right arm bears a white armband marked with a red cross. His left hand carries a small Bible instead of an M1 Garand. Army doctrine allowed no exceptions for conscience. Circular No. 155, issued May 1942, classified conscientious objectors as non-combatants to serve in medical or auxiliary capacity as directed. In practice, the line between non-combatant and coward was blurred. Doss's company commander, Captain Cunningham, logged a disciplinary note. Private Doss refuses to handle weapons, morale concern. Within days, rumours spread through the barracks. Bible boy won't fight. At 0500, the company formed on the drill field. The order? Weapons inspection. Each man held out his rifle. Doss stood empty-handed. The lieutenant barked, "Where's your piece, Private?" "Sir, I'm not permitted to carry one." "Not permitted by who?" "By my faith, sir." The platoon laughed. The officer didn't. He wrote insubordination in the logbook. That afternoon, Doss was assigned latrine duty. He completed it quietly, then returned to the barracks where his Bible lay open to Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers. When others went to the range, he studied the medical field manual number 835. The diagrams showed tourniquets, hemostats, airway management. He treated a training casualty that evening, a recruit with a heat stroke. The instructor noted his calm under pressure. It was the first time his hands, not his beliefs, spoke for him. The pressure increased. In December, his company prepared for deployment. Unit cohesion was critical, and Doss was a disruption. Fellow soldiers dumped his boots outside in the rain, mocked him during chow, and shouted prayers as insults. One sergeant told him directly, "If we go to combat, you'll get us killed." Doss answered with statistics. "Sir, medical aid saves 1 in 3 wounded before evacuation." The sergeant walked away. The command escalated the issue. On March 1, 1943, a recommendation for court-martial was filed. Refusal to obey lawful orders to bear arms. The Army legal officer reviewed it. The ruling cited United States v. Seeger, 1943, precedent. The constitutional right to serve without weapons. The court-martial was dismissed. The division commander issued an informal directive instead. "Leave him be, see if he lasts." He lasted. By spring, Doss had completed advanced medical training. He memorized casualty evacuation protocols, golden hour, field dressing sequence, blood loss ratio. His handwriting filled the margins of every page. He could quote evacuation speeds. Litter bearers, 2.5 miles per hour over level terrain, 1.2 through mud. He knew the math of survival, not the theology of mercy. In training exercises, he carried wounded men twice his weight. His average evacuation time, 6 minutes from contact to cover. Instructors documented it. One of them, Staff Sergeant Howell, later wrote, "He carried his squad mates like ammunition, necessary, not optional." By July 1943, his unit had stopped mocking him. He was still an outlier, but not an outsider. When a recruit fractured his arm on the obstacle course, Doss splintered it using his rifle sling, the only time he ever touched a weapon. Officially, he remained a Class A medical technician. Unofficially, he became the man who could make anyone breathe again. His faith hadn't changed, the system had. Before deployment, a captain called him in. "Doss, I still don't like what you stand for, but I can't deny what you do." Doss nodded. "Sir, I stand where the wounded fall." September 1943. Orders came down, Pacific Theatre. The ship would leave from San Francisco. Each soldier was issued an M1 rifle. Doss refused his again. The clerk paused, looked up and said, "Suit yourself." For the first time, the Army didn't argue. He boarded the transport with a medic's bag, a prayer book, and nothing else that could kill. He passed inspection with nothing to carry but conviction. July 21st, 1944. Guam, Pacific Ocean. The beach is chaos. Coral sand shredded by artillery, smoke drifting low across the surf. The first wave of Marines hits the shore at 08:30 under machine gun fire. A second wave follows 10 minutes later, then the medical teams. Among them is Private Desmond Doss, U.S. Army 77th Infantry Division, 307th Regiment. His medical bag weighs 32 pounds. He carries no weapon. The numbers define the scale. 55,000 Americans, 18,000 Japanese defenders, humidity near 90%. Heat stroke kills almost as efficiently as bullets. The medics are trained to reach a casualty within 3 minutes. Doss reaches his first in 45 seconds. He drags the man to cover, applies a sulfur packet, ties off an artery, and waves for stretcher bearers. The man survives. For 21 days, Doss works between the lines. The official casualty logs show that 7,500 Americans were wounded on Guam. 20% died before reaching aid stations. Doss moves without helmet most days because it blocks his hearing. He listens for the cries, short, sharp, often drowned by fire. He learns to count the seconds between bursts to cross open ground. The others start timing their runs with him. At night he writes brief notes in the margins of his Bible. 2 saved today, 1 lost. He doesn't pray for victory, he prays for efficiency. His section leader, Sergeant Howell, files an unsent letter to headquarters. Recommend commendation for exceptional calm under pressure. It stays in the unit files, unnoticed. October 20th, 1944. Leyte, Philippines. Rain turns the roads to slurry. The 307th advances through coconut groves under sniper fire. Casualty rate for medics climbs to 38%. Doss crawls through mud to reach a man hit in the femoral artery. He clamps it with field forceps, rips his own sleeve for a bandage, and stays until the pulse steadies. 2 rounds strike the dirt within inches of his hand. He doesn't flinch. A lieutenant watching through binoculars mutters, "He's either fearless or deaf." The platoon learns to trust him. They stop calling him Bible Boy. Now he's Doc. When ammunition runs low, Doss helps carry belts to the front. When rations spoil, he shares his. His reputation spreads quietly. Not courage, but predictability. He always comes back. By December, Guam is secured, Leyte mostly cleared. The regiment has lost 1/3 of its strength. Doss has not fired a single round, not even in practice. His medical reports list 12 men treated for shrapnel, 3 for malaria, 1 for psychological shock. His handwriting is precise, almost mechanical. One night, sitting against a palm trunk, he cleans his instruments in rainwater. A sergeant nearby asks, "Why do you keep going back out there?" Doss answers without looking up, "Because they'd go for me." The line isn't philosophical, it's procedural logic. When the campaign ends, the men of Company B pose for a photograph. Everyone holds rifles except him. His hands rest on his knees, palms bandaged from rope burns. The caption, later added by an editor, reads, "Medic, 77th Division, Pacific Theatre." No name. He doesn't mind. He already knows there will be another island, another hill, another calculation of seconds and distance. He saved by moving slower than bullets. April 29th, 1945. Maida Escarpment, Okinawa. 0600 hours. Rain mixed with cordite drifts over the ridgeline. The 307th Infantry Regiment, 77th Division, faces a vertical climb, 306 feet of jagged limestone rising from the sugarcane fields. The Japanese call it Uraso e Mura. The Americans call it Hacksaw Ridge. On paper, the terrain gain is 0.3 miles. The casualty projection, 70%. The Battle of Okinawa involves 183,000 US troops and over 76,000 Japanese defenders. Artillery density reaches 1 shell every 12 seconds. The ridge is fortified with interlocking caves, machine gun nests, and concealed mortar pits. The 1st Battalion reaches the top by 0730. Within 20 minutes, the line disintegrates. Half the company is hit. Orders come down, retreat, reorganize at the base. Desmond Doss stays behind. He moves laterally through smoke, checking for signs of life. His field bag contains 1 morphine syringe, 6 bandages, and 40 feet of rope. He hears movement, a corporal pinned by shrapnel. Doss drags him to the edge, ties a bowline knot around his torso, and begins lowering him down. The descent takes 2 minutes per man. The rope burns his palms. He repeats the process 75 times. Between 10:30 p.m. and 04:30 a.m., he evacuates the wounded one by one. The drop distance is measured later, 304 feet. The average time per rescue, 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Estimated weight handled, 14,000 pounds cumulative. Japanese patrols sweep the ridge 3 times. Twice, searchlights pass within 15 meters. Doss freezes, holding his breath. The men below assume he's dead. At 0200 hours, a flare illuminates the ridge. A sniper's round grazes his helmet. He ignores it, finishes lowering another man, and whispers the same words each time. Lord, help me get one more. It's not prayer as performance, it's repetition, a verbal rhythm for focus. The same rhythm medics use to count compressions. At dawn, when he finally descends, his uniform is soaked in blood, mostly not his own. His hands are split open to the tendons. He collapses beside a stretcher pile, pulse 42, body temperature 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The division surgeon documents severe exhaustion, second-degree burns, and nerve damage to both hands. Doss refuses morphine. Save it for someone who'll need it later. By 0900, the ridge is retaken. Reinforcements from the 96th Division climb past the stacked stretchers. The battalion surgeon estimates 75 saved. The field report lists 55 confirmed, 20 probable. Either number breaks every previous evacuation record in the Pacific campaign. 3 days later, on May 2nd, Doss is hit by a grenade while tending a wounded man. 17 fragments penetrate his legs. He crawls 75 yards under fire to the aid station. When another man is hit nearby, Doss yields his stretcher to him. He waits 5 hours before receiving treatment. During evacuation, a sniper's bullet shatters his left arm. He ties it to a rifle. Stock for splinting, the only time he ever uses a weapon. The campaign continues for 2 more months. Okinawa ends with 12,520 Americans dead, 36,600 wounded, and over 100,000 Japanese casualties. Hacksaw Ridge alone accounts for 3,000 killed in action. The after-action report for the 77th Division notes 1 medic accounted for approximately 75 lives saved. Name: Doss, Desmond T. The Army awards him the Medal of Honor citation in October, the first non-combatant to receive it in US history. The commendation reads, "He refused to carry a weapon and became a legend." The men who once tried to have him discharged stand beside him during the ceremony. One says quietly, "We all prayed on that ridge. He's just the only one who never stopped." 1 prayer per man, and he never missed. October 12th, 1945, the White House, Washington, D.C. 09:15 hours. The South Lawn gleams under autumn light as President Harry S. Truman steps forward to meet a thin, pale soldier in dress khaki. The man moves slowly, his left arm in a cast. Reporters count 33 decorations pinned to his chest. He is Private First Class Desmond T. Doss, the first conscientious objector to receive the Medal of Honor. Truman shakes his hand and says, "I'm proud of you. You truly earned this." Doss answers quietly, "I just did what was needed." By the end of the Pacific War, more than 1.3 million Americans had been wounded, over 103,000 killed. Medics represented 1.7% of total US forces, but accounted for nearly 10% of battlefield fatalities. On Okinawa alone, 214 medics were killed. Doss was one of the few to survive after months of direct engagement. He spent 5.5 months in Army hospitals undergoing skin grafts and treatment for 17 shrapnel wounds. His medical file lists nerve damage to both hands, a fractured left arm, and early symptoms of tuberculosis contracted in the Pacific climate. After the ceremony, Truman asked his staff, "How does a man go to war without a gun?" The answer was statistical. The US Army classified over 25,000 non-combatant personnel by the war's end. Doss was the only one awarded the nation's highest honor. The citation read, "He refused to carry a weapon and became a legend." The public reaction was mixed. Newspapers hailed him as a symbol of moral courage. Some veterans saw him as an anomaly. Within the Army Medical Department, his record was quietly studied. Field manual revisions in 1946 added his techniques for rope lowering and casualty triage under fire. Command briefs cited his discipline as a model for non-fire personnel operations. No propaganda, no slogans, just procedure. Hospital reports show that between May and October 1945, he underwent 12 operations. He refused narcotics except for surgery. His weight dropped to 114 pounds. Doctors recommended medical retirement. He accepted it without discussion. His final Army pay voucher totaled $305. He donated half to a veterans chaplaincy fund. In letters to friends, he wrote without sentiment, "Don't look at me, look at the men I carried." He avoided interviews. When asked by a reporter whether he was proud, he said, "I did my job under orders of my own making." The Army's post-war analysis of Okinawa estimated that timely medical intervention reduced fatalities by 22% compared to previous campaigns. In official lectures, his story became a case study for risk acceptance under religious constraint. He never attended those briefings. He was already home in Virginia, learning to use his right hand again. By 1946, his health had collapsed. Tuberculosis spread to one lung, surgery removed the upper lobe. He spent 5 years in veterans' hospitals. When the Army offered him public appearances, he declined. He asked instead for his Bible and a pair of rubber exercise bands. His rehabilitation logs show steady progress, 5 pulls per day, then 10, then 20. Precision as ritual. In 1948, he was officially discharged from the Army with 100% disability. He received a monthly pension of $68. He used it to buy a small farm in Alabama. Neighbors often saw him carrying feed sacks with his one good arm. No one recognized him as the man from the newspapers. The Army's medical statistics for World War II list 16 million served, 405,399 dead, and 673,846 wounded. Of them, tens of thousands owed their lives to unnamed men like Doss. But only one proved that a man could enter war without breaking his beliefs, and leave without breaking his will. He never took a life, yet carried more than any of them. March 23rd, 2006. Piedmont, Alabama. 22:15 hours. The heart monitor in a small hospital room goes flat. No ceremony, no crowd. The nurse notes the time, 10:15 p.m. Desmond Thomas Doss, 87 years old, retired Army medic, Medal of Honor recipient, dies quietly in his sleep. The chart reads, respiratory failure secondary to lung infection. The last line of the final report adds, patient remained conscious and calm until the end. After the war, Doss withdrew from public life. Between 1946 and 1951, he spent more than 5 years in veterans' hospitals, most of it in traction or recovery wards. Tuberculosis collapsed one lung and scarred the other. His weight stabilized at 120 pounds. Doctors gave him 2 years to live. He lived 60 more. The Veterans Administration records list him as permanently disabled, total loss of left pulmonary capacity. He settled in a small house near Lookout Mountain, Georgia. No phone, no electricity for years. His wife Dorothy was a nurse who met him during rehabilitation. She managed correspondence from strangers, hundreds of letters per year from soldiers, students, ministers. Doss answered none of them personally. When he spoke publicly, it was brief. "Don't call me a hero," he said once. "I couldn't even carry a rifle." The Army cited him as precedent in the 1950 revision of the Field Medical Manual. His evacuation method, rope-lowering casualty descent, became a training standard. Non-combatant protocol sections quoted his case file directly. The statistics told the rest. By 1953, nearly 11,000 men claimed conscientious objector status during the Korean War, 42% of them serving in medical or rescue roles. The system that once mocked him now replicated him. By the 1960s, his health deteriorated again. He lost his hearing from years of antibiotic toxicity. Communication became limited to writing and lip reading. He learned sign language, continued to volunteer at local hospitals. In 1976, his wife died in a car accident. He remarried later but never left rural Alabama. Interviews from this period show a man who measured his words carefully, sentences rarely exceeding 10. In 1998, the US Army conducted an internal review of combat valor records. Doss's file was labelled unique among 3,400 Medal of Honor recipients. The note attached by the archivist read, "No hostile engagement initiated, yet highest casualty rescue ratio on record." The data remained the only proof he ever needed. He refused Hollywood adaptations for decades. "They'll get it wrong," he said. In 2016, 10 years after his death, the film Hacksaw Ridge introduced his story to millions. The Pentagon's after-action review of the movie noted 95% historical accuracy. His family received the residual royalties and donated them to veterans' charities. His headstone at the Chattanooga National Cemetery lists only name, rank, and date. Visitors still leave small crosses, medic patches, and folded letters. None of it was what he wanted. The inscription beneath the Medal of Honor emblem simply reads, "He stood by his faith and saved 75 men." Official Army medical data from Okinawa lists 77 saved. Doss never confirmed the number. God knows, he once wrote, and that's enough. In the end, he proved what statistics alone cannot record, that restraint can be a form of courage and conviction a weapon of its own design. Courage is not taking life. It's protecting it when the world expects you to kill.